Professor Gadgil is one of the world's top ecologists, certainly a very important person in India, not only because of the work he's done, but because of his very creative mind. And I think that's what really attracts me most to him, is the fact that he is not just using his science, but he's using his science in the interest of society. And although I've known him through reputation almost all of my working life, it's only in the last 2 years that I've actually contacted and connected with him closely through the Western Ghats Ecology panel, of which he may or may not speak. But it's, as some of you may be following the newspapers, it's at the moment quite very much in the news, and it will probably be more in the news in the next few months. But today is also the International Biodiversity Day, so we are really, really privileged to have him with us on this day. And I'm not going to take up your time because I know he has a very interesting presentation ahead, and we want to make it interactive. So please, and he's already agreed to this, please stop and ask questions anytime. I can assure you he's a wonderful teacher and he's a wonderful communicator. And the more you ask questions, don't ask questions for the sake of asking, please, but ask as much as you want, because I'm sure you will enjoy answering them. So Professor Gadgil, welcome, and all yours.
Thank you, Lucia. Well, it's a pleasure and privilege to be here. TERI is, after all, one of the world's leading institutions in the area of environment, governance, energy, resources. And of course, I have had association with TERI for many years. But as Lucia said, with our Western Ghat Ecology panel, I have worked much more intimately. And I was very happy when she said that, why don't you come and talk on something which interests you. And currently, certainly one of the things which I am thinking a great deal about is what ails environmental governance in India, because I think there are a lot of things which are perhaps not quite wrong with environmental governance. But as a background, of course, environment is always talked of in the context of development, and people keep saying, do you want development or do you want environment, or which I think are improper questions, but anyway, these are the kind of questions which are being asked. So perhaps it is appropriate to start with asking what is development. It is obviously something which cannot be objectively defined. It's a matter of values, and currently there is at least one very influential section of people in the government who think that 8 or 9% rate of increase in GDP, all there is to development. That is important, and that is what we should be pursuing, regardless of its environmental and social consequences, which I strongly differ on, and I will say why, amongst other reasons, I differ from this perspective. Buddha talked of Ashtavidha Marga, eightfold path to Nirvana, anyway. So people have been talking also about what is development all about, and our tiny neighboring country, Bhutan, which is a Buddhist country, is saying that you go to Bhutan, and it's very interesting. The first thing you see at the airport is, we are not after gross national product. We are trying to maximize gross national happiness. And they talk about Buddhist perspective on development. Anyway, there are many other discussions. I don't want to go into details, but obviously development is not simply total amount of economic operations going on in the country. There is economic wellness, and not only of the people who gain from economic development, but of the whole population. But there is environmental, physical, mental, spiritual, workplace, social wellness, political wellness. There are many aspects to development, and we should surely be thinking of. And thank you. And as again Buddha says, we must accept the Madhyama Marga. We must take a middle path. It is not just 8 or 9% growth of gross national product that is all that matters. There are conflicts in attempting to arrive at that growth rate, and therefore, these conflicting demands of economic development, environmental health, social harmony also, there are many examples of how this pursuit of economic growth for its own sake has led to social strife. We should all be thinking of that, and a proper balance between all of these must be arrived at. And I personally believe we cannot accept the hegemony of rate of growth of GDP to the exclusion of other considerations, which I think is one of the central issues of what ails environmental governance in India, is this thinking that all that matters is economic development, and not economic development in the sense of really living standards of all people, but simply the gross national product, an abstract thing. Maybe much of that pie is being swallowed by a very tiny fraction of the population. So these are issues that one must think of. To take, these are general things. I think what one should talk also is in the context of very specific examples. So I would try today to talk about a number of specific examples using which I want to try and explain these general points which I am making. So one of the very striking instances of what I think is wrong the way environmental management is viewed is this exercise called Zonal Atlas for siting of industries. A few years ago, maybe 10 years ago, a large grant was received from German Aid Foundation. Government of India accepted it, and through the Central Pollution Control Board and all state pollution control boards, they started this exercise with also some German technical help of preparing a spatial database. And that spatial database was of pollution assimilation capacities and existing pollution loads, so that you can prescribe where additional industries, additional pollution generating industries can be located, where they should be avoided because already there is no further possibility of adding to the pollution load. Large number of officials of at least the state pollution control boards worked with great interest on these, and I met one of them. He had worked on the Ratnagiri district Zonal Atlas, and he was feeling very depressed because almost all these have been suppressed. They have not been allowed to see the light of the day. And so he has spent years preparing this very good database and this atlas, and he gets no credit in a sense for that. Nobody has access to this. As a member of the Western Ghat Ecology Expert Panel, I asked, as we started our work, about all the available information on the Western Ghat districts, which we should be able to use because our work required looking at all this information. And the Ministry of Environment is, of course, the ministry which has prepared these atlases. These were never mentioned. Then an activist from Ratnagiri district who had learned through personal contacts of the existence of this Ratnagiri district Zonal Atlas for siting of industries, so that this is an important input you must look at. Then the minister I approached, I said, I understand there is such an atlas and our panel would like to look at it. He gave explicit instructions to the ministry that this should be made available, so I got it. So I got a CD also. So there is this Ratnagiri volume with color maps, fairly careful analysis. There are flaws in that, but very careful analysis, and saying that this part of Ratnagiri district here, say there is a place called Lote near Chipun, I will talk a little more about it. There is no further possibility of adding to pollution load. It is already the pollution absorption capacity of this particular area. They had grids of that particular grid where it falls is more than saturated, and so on. But then where are the others? I understand the Goa Atlas for some reason was released to the public. We asked for, we never got atlases for any district other than Ratnagiri. for the Western Ghats. So there are some 44 Western Ghat districts. And then we had discussions. I learned that for almost all the 500 or odd districts of India, these atlases are prepared. But they are either gathering dust or by now they may have been consigned to flames, because a Secretary Environment to the government in India took the view that this atlas will harm economic development and therefore we must suppress it. I think this is entirely wrong, because the business of environmental governor, who certainly Secretary Environment is to take a balanced view. Okay, there are economic ministries who may take contrary view. He must put a proper view in front of the whoever cabinet or whatever, and then a balanced view should be taken. If the environment ministry itself starts by suppressing important information which it itself has generated to take good care of environment, then there is something utterly wrong. And I am afraid this is exactly the picture today. Let me talk about another specific case. Sure, please, sir.
Is it not a repeat of the same thing when this GoNoGo controversy in coal mines started?
Maybe, yes. I have not studied that in depth, but yes. I mean, as you are pointing out, there are many such things happening, yes.
Because GoNoGo is again just like this atlas that you are mentioning, where they had designated areas which had passed the load,
right,
environmental load, or they were in dense forests.
Right.
Factors into the
Yeah.
Please.
That particular go-no-go in the coal areas is different from this, because there was no scientific exercise done to establish which were the go-no-go areas. It was essentially a visit from the minister who went round, on the basis of where the sun comes in and the sun does not come in. He decided which were go-no-go areas. In fact, that was a shortcoming of that issue. But yes, in terms of the final outcome, if we are going to suggest go-no-go areas, we would recommend that you go through a process, a scientific process, which has gone into the Zonal Atlas to arrive at a GonoGo.
Yeah, and as
what I was trying to point out is the same process, GoNoGo was killed. The way the atlas had been suppressed,
but as Lijia said this,
wrong, whatever.
That I agree, but there is this distinction, because they prepared this matrix, they of the levels of pollution, separately air pollution, water pollution, then for all the industries, they said level of impact on air, water, and it's, as I remember, some 8 cells are there in this table. So depending on where it falls, a particular area, it's not go or no go, but a certain level of moderately air polluting industry could come here, but not a very seriously water polluting, such like that. So it is more detailed and fairly carefully done scientific exercise. But as I said, as you say, it is certainly suppressed quite unjustifiably, I mean, in a wrong-headed way, I would say. Now, this Athirappalli hydroelectric project, which is a project in Kerala, which has been going on for a long time, being insisted that it should be executed. There is a very interesting organization in Kerala called River Research Foundation. These are technical people, but voluntarily they are looking at the health of rivers in Kerala. And there are agricultural scientists, there are engineers, including water resource engineers, electrical engineers, people like that working for it. So they did a very careful analysis of this Athirappalli project. And they showed that there is not enough water. In fact, on that river, Chari, I think it is, there are already several bunds, that there isn't enough water reaching for the Athirappalli project, that currently that river is providing very substantial amount of irrigation, and the change flow in the river with the hydroelectric power generation would substantially reduce the available irrigation, hurting agriculture. That there is a major waterfall, and the hydroelectric project would essentially mean the waterfall would stop, the water would stop flowing there, it will go dry. It's a major tourist attraction, and a major source of income in that locality, and it will destroy what is the last low elevation riparian forest. The riverside forests are particularly rich in biodiversity. In Kerala, this is or in fact almost over the entire Western Ghats, this is amongst the, or possibly the last such low elevation riverside forest. So all of this will happen. Now there was an open meeting where the engineers from Kerala Electricity Board and so on were invited. They came in very large numbers. The River Research Foundation people made a technical presentation showing that their analysis shows there isn't enough water, that the power generation, therefore the amount of power generation would be much lower than what is being claimed, and so on. The board, electricity board and other people could not refute their arguments. So it appears that they were correct, that it is not a economically, technically and certainly environmentally justifiable project. But there is a continual pressure for having that project, and there is currently a debate going on in Maharashtra which perhaps tells you why there is so much political pressure for having these river valley projects. There are now statistics being shown in Maharashtra that over last, I think, 10 years, thousands of crores have been spent on irrigation projects, but there is hardly any additional irrigation available to agriculture. The way these projects are done, there is one particular dam. It started with an estimated cost of 10 crores. It ended with 750 crores, no less. And who knows how much of these 750 crores was shared amongst whom. But surely all sorts of dams are being built, not because they are going to serve genuine national economic interest, irrigation interest, or really produce power, but because they make an opportunity for corruption. This is, and now the Maharashtra government was trying to get away from having to produce a white paper on all these issues, but they have been forced to. A lot of this is coming out. So there is no question that many of these projects are being pushed not for reasons of genuine economic fulfillment out of this project, for other kinds of reasons.
But government statistics, in government of Maharashtra statistics does show increase in irrigation area and all.
That they are going back and forth, and now this white paper will presumably bring this out, and there is a dispute. Yes, the irrigation minister came up with some statistics saying that it has increased, but there is a lot of others in the opposition who are claiming that he is showing statistics which is not the proper statistics. I do not know. I mean, yeah. So this will be gone into. If he really was sure and that genuinely it had been a major increase, they would not have taken 2 weeks to agree to produce this white paper also. I think it is quite suspicious. In any case, I mean, it is, and this kind of cost escalations are obviously going on, and there is no real check on it. You start with giving contract for a low this thing, showing at that time that it is a very good project because it will lead to whatever. Planning Commission has some benefit cost ratios which must be exceeded. So maybe for 10 crores the benefit cost ratio was favorable. For 750 crores it's probably not at all favorable. But later you are manipulating and giving so much more money. So that is not being disputed, that there are these enormous cost overruns as the projects are going. But as you say, yes, there are claims and counterclaims. And there is, of course, a very interesting case which has become famous. This is just a quotation from Hindu newspaper. There is a panchayat in Palakkad district of Kerala called Plachimada, and there the Coca-Cola company has adversely affected the groundwater resources. So this is not just a claim of the villagers. Government set up, I think, a 13-member technical committee to estimate the economic cost of overdrawal of groundwater by Coca-Cola factory, and the figure is something very substantial. I am forgetting 300 crore rupees or something, some very substantial figure. And this is a technical committee which has worked out and given this thing. So the Kerala Assembly unanimously passed a resolution that the company must compensate the farmers for this major loss. As this is last year's news item, that Pratibha Patil maybe does not know that the bill, this Coca-Cola Victims Relief and Compensation Claims Special Tribunal Bill 2011 in February, I think it was passed by the Kerala Assembly unanimously. It was forwarded to the central government, and central government is not allowing just biding time and not sent it to the president for signature. So they have just kept it suppressed. So I think it is reasonable to claim that confiscation of natural resources to serve particular interests, not conservation of those, is the keynote of environmental governance in India. This phrase, by the way, confiscation, not conservation, has an interesting history. It was first used, I think, in 1860 by a British collector, I think, in Madras Presidency, when the British government's forest department made proposals to take over huge areas of community managed forest and make it government reserve forest. And this British collector said that he doesn't agree that this is forest conservation. He says it is mere confiscation. So confiscation, not conservation, I think it's quite reasonable to accept that this is what primarily going on, and the environmental governance is supporting it. Certainly nobody in the center environment ministry has pressurized the central government to make sure that the president actually signs this bill, as they should have done. I mean, I don't see why there can be any argument that it is their responsibility to help them. But there are some community-based traditions of prudent resource use in many places. In particular, I had a long association with a village called Mendalekha in Gadchiroli district of Maharashtra. This is one of the most Naxalite violence-prone districts of Maharashtra, and this is where there was a traditional system called nistar from British times, and nistar records clearly say this is community rights. Nistar are community rights. So on the basis of those community rights now, finally on the basis of Forest Rights Act, large areas have been given as community forest resources. And initially the criticism was that they will never be able to manage properly. There will be all sorts of problems. Very interestingly, Mendalekha has the largest of such community areas which remain government land, but which is now with the community for management, 1800 hectares. And where the government was getting, by auctioning bamboo, no more than 30 lakhs. The community, which is now carefully harvesting bamboo themselves, not allowing outside labor to come in, and then auctioning it, has got this year 1 crore, more than 3 times as much as the government was getting all these years, with much more careful harvest of bamboo. So there are these traditions, but there was a tremendous long drawn out struggle before these villages got their community forest.
What is the role of these institutions that were playing the role before the community actually has taken over?
The institutions that were playing the role before was primarily the State Forest Department and the Ballarsha paper mill. So now the community has the right to manage, and of course the traders, I mean this 1 crore of bamboo, I am saying bamboo has value, much better value for other uses than as raw material for paper. There are private traders who have paid this money to get the bamboo. But now the government is supposed to provide technical inputs in their preparing the management plans and help them properly manage. The communities now under the Forest Right Act have the authority to prepare and execute the management plans.